to everyone, so hopefully it's a good choice on the Fazoli's. They are bringing more beverages. He forgot 3 of the containers, so we do have more of that coming if we run out. So, but quick introduction of who I am. I know a lot of you probably have not met me directly. My name is Trent Payno. I am the owner of Housemaster here in the Indianapolis market, and me and my parents have owned and operated for 13 years. We do have a team of 5 inspectors currently out on the road and taking care of your clients. So what that means is we can get to inspections pretty quick on our schedule. Right now we are pretty much just within a couple days or so of scheduling inspections. It does follow the school calendar, as all of you know. So it gets busy when kids are in school, and when kids are on spring break, it slows up for us. But we can get you on pretty quick. Generally speaking, we travel anywhere from about 45 minutes to an hour outside of 465. That's one of our common questions is, where all do you go, or where are you based out of? We say we're based out of wherever our truck will travel, which is quite distant. So we will get into the Lafayette area, Bloomington, Greencastle, Crawfordsville, and kind of all over before we start asking specific questions of where and how far we're going. We do one of our big pieces to the team. Recently, we have hired and put on the road a Hispanic bilingual licensed home inspector. So that's fairly new to us. He's been employed for about a year and a half, but it's a process. It takes time to get licensed and trained and up to speed to be able to feel comfortable to put them out into homes and with your clients. But Enrique is his name. He has a wealth of knowledge on homes. And the thing that I always like to say, when I say a bilingual Spanish individual, his English is also very good. So you can understand his English just as well as he speaks Spanish. So, but he's got a strong background in homes, remodels. Him and his wife even run a property management company. So he's been around those entities a while. A little bit on my background and my parents of why we are and claim to be the best home inspectors in the city. Before we got into Housemaster, my dad and family were heavily involved in property development, construction, and then management of senior housing facilities. So all of my adult life, I watched my dad develop from ground up and then administrate assisted living, nursing home, single lot, 0 lot homes for senior adults. And one piece of that we still have, keeps us busy, is we manage 3 different senior housing apartment communities. So 166 units in that mix. So with all of that background and experience, there's not much that we haven't seen or come across when it comes to homes and components, property development, and all the fun stuff that we get into in the real estate industry. So Housemaster, just kind of give you a background on it. Housemaster is a franchise. We specifically chose Housemaster when we were entering into another business venture. We certainly were familiar with small startup family business, and this was our first time kind of teaming up with somebody larger and larger presence, and that gives us a lot of benefit to then pass down to you as agents and our clients. So Housemaster nationally is the largest home inspection franchise. The other benefit that recently came on board with us is we are now a part of the Neighborly Group. You'll start to see and recognize that Neighborly brand a little bit more in our city because they have acquired a lot of common brands that you are already familiar with. But the Neighborly company, their goal is to own a brand in every home service option that any homeowner would need. and they went out and searched home inspection companies and landed on Housemaster. So what that means is here in the city, I now can rely on companies and owners of like Precision Garage Doors or Molly Maids or Lawn Pride, 5-Star Painting. I could go on and on and on. But we're now kind of a collective group of home service owners and brands that we can rely on and feed off on. So our inspections, I put together, and I have a little presentation. I don't know if I'll get into that too much because I know it a little far away and small, but I did a game, Are You Smarter Than a Home Inspector? And I kind of challenged groups of agents to see if you know what it is we're talking about, and I'll see if it comes up. But our home inspections typically will take about 2 hours or so. We get those reports out within 24 hours after the inspection. Most times it's same day, but we guarantee within 24 hours. And then we offer all the other services that your clients or properties may need in addition to that full home inspection. So we put on the tables our service/price list, and it gives you a full spectrum idea of all the things that we can do and we offer. My corporate marketing person screams at me because she says, "Don't distribute your prices. Don't do that. Force them to call you and have a conversation." I'm of the different opinion of you want to know what you're getting into. You want to know the resources and what we offer and at what cost. So there it is. I lay it out on the line for everyone so you know and you're not cold calling and trying to get pricing beforehand. We do offer a lot of different discounts throughout the year. The one that we just kind of beefed up a little bit for the new year, we've always had a military veterans discount because we know those group of individuals going for the VA loan, they're required to have the WDI inspection and whether the seller or buyer pays for that. But we've always had that, and we chose to beef that up a little bit and classify it as a local hero discount. So that's a $45 discount on police, EMT, fire, military, and then hospital workers. So keep that in mind. Hopefully, whenever you're calling or getting prices from any service industry, you're asking about discounts or military discounts and things like that. So wanted you to be aware of it. Let me see, I just am curious if this is going to look any different. We won't split up in teams. I don't think we have to get too competitive on that one. Maybe it is. Can you see it? Number one, can you kind of make out what the image is? The question is, what is being shown in the picture? If you can take a stab or just holler out. It is a rain barrel. It is. Nice idea, probably in the first couple of weeks of putting it out by your house, but then it basically is a collection point for putting water right at your foundation, because most people aren't going to maintain them. They're not going to empty them. They're going to get clogged or disconnected and cause water problems right at the foundation. So this one showing some shingles. Do we know what the two main different types of shingles are and what these would be? Dimensional. You got it. So I always tell agents, when you're going into neighborhoods, going on showings, and you're meeting with listing appointments, start to kind of identify, is it a 3-tab shingle or is it a dimensional shingle? There is a difference in the typical design life of them. Replacement then, if you're on a dimensional shingle and the neighbor next to you has a 3-tab, most likely that's going to be an older, more worn out shingle type. So new agents, I always kind of say, if you're going on a listing appointment and that house is the only house on the block that still has 3-tab shingles, you might want to start identifying that and asking those questions of how old it is. What's missing on this bathroom sink drain? Kristen did the right motion. This thing. It is a P-trap. So any drain, whether it's like a basement slab drain, a tub drain, a toilet drain, any drain has to have that P-trap because that's what holds a level of water. And that water in that P-trap is what's keeping the sewer gas from coming back out into the home. And that's all it is a air block to keep sewer gas from coming into the home. What we find a lot of times in basement, like guest bathrooms that don't get used a lot, and people start complaining of odor, it's probably because they just need to run the sink in the tub a little bit and refill that P-trap underneath. We're in a garage here in a pile of wood, so what's this going to cost? You guys are good. I mean, this is top notch. So yes, it's not outside, it's not on the ground, but those termites will find it. They will tunnel through cracks in the brick or block in concrete and find that wood and cause major issues. This is the fun one, but why is a high loop on a dishwasher and garbage disposal required? I know you guys probably get tired of seeing all these mundane, repetitive, minor little things that show up in reports. One of those being the high loop off of the garbage disposal connecting that dishwasher. I've gotten into conversations with building contractors and appliance install people who say that there's an integral high loop on the dishwasher unit itself. And I said, that's perfectly fine, but as soon as you connect it to a sink drain now, you've got to be concerned about it backflowing and going back down that dishwasher drain, causing odor and clogs there. So we know that those type of things fill reports a lot of times, but I always remind groups of agents, we are there working for that client and for that buyer. They're our direct consumer. They're the ones that sign our agreements and pay us. We take the approach that our clients, unless we are proven otherwise, don't know anything about homes. So we're there to educate, instruct, show them how things operate and why they're in place to help us maintain homes better. So this one, I always tell people, and I'll kind of wrap up here because I know we're 20-ish, 25 minutes or so. I don't have to go and Google search crazy pictures because my team and our inspections produce enough of the fun pictures that I can fill presentations up all day long. So this one, Mike Kelly, he's been with us for coming up on 10 years as an inspector. For some reason, he has the best luck with wildlife and critters and things in crawl spaces. So this was one of his inspections that he captured that little guy there staring right back at him. And my word of wisdom is if we already know or have suspicion that there's an animal in a crawl space or at it, we're probably not going to open that hatch and explore and go in because we want to keep our guys and ourselves safe in those regards. But yeah, Mike, he's had possums crawl in front of him under vapor barriers, he's had cats, he's had snakes, he's had all sorts, and it just seems to happen on his inspections for whatever reason. But back to kind of our company and Housemaster and who we are over the 13 years, we've now collectively in Indianapolis have completed over 17,500 home inspections. So that's pretty impressive with our staff and our team. But if you guys have questions or if you need to reach out, Wendy is my go-to office administrative extraordinaire. We just did a big email and kind of highlighted her help in the company and all that she does. But when we book inspections, she then follows up on all the details to get access into those homes and into those properties. One thing, and she's going to love that I say this, we want to make you guys aware that when we are working with investment properties, rental properties that have tenants and occupants, help us out, communicate to the best of your ability on the sell side to get those tenants to cooperate and understand that we really don't want to disrupt people, we don't want to wake people up, we don't want to open doors and startle people under blankets and things. So that's something that we we work through constantly, and we're trying not to postpone inspections or delay inspections because the tenant just is not willing or cooperative, or maybe they just want to cause a ruffle in the feathers during that process for whatever reason. But she's the one that works through that with us, with Broker Bay or Showing Time and the listing agents, to line up all the details, get everything in our order with access and approvals. So that's Wendy on the back end of the office, but she comes out and helps me do these things with all of our events and fun marketing activities. So last thing before I open up with questions, we do a social media video series, so find us on Facebook. If you aren't already, I'm doing a video series called Know Before You Show. So every month we do about 3 or 4 videos on a particular topic of the home or of the home inspection. Recently we've just kind of covered kitchen appliances and things that are in kitchen inspections. So if you're wanting to share those to your page or post on your websites or share with clients, we're trying to educate not only agents and buyers, but homeowners on little things that they can do leading up to the inspection to help them improve their inspection results on the homeowner-seller side. So before I wrap up, any questions or anything you guys have for the fun home inspectors in the room? Yes.
If you were to inspect and, for example, miss that there were termites, what would the next
Things happen, things get missed. Anytime we have a callback or a customer care, spin it to the positive term, it's either myself or my dad that gets involved and responds. We dig into talking with the client, maybe scheduling a site visit to go find out maybe conditions have changed. We've had it happen to where somebody moved the dresser, pulled the carpet back because they're doing a new floor and find all this damage. And you go, yeah, but I couldn't do that, during the inspection. So it's just a starting the process. We do have a 90-day guarantee on all of our reports that cover similar things like that. We obviously have Indiana licensing requires your general and your liability insurance. One thing that for the license for home inspectors, they do not require E&O insurance, but Housemaster does. So Housemaster requires that we have a high level of E&O insurance to identify that question right there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Is your dad Tim?
My dad is Tim. Yeah. He's the older, more handsome Pano. So yeah, we could go into the whole Pano thing, but yes, my family's been on the west side of town for many, many years. My grandfather started Lakeview Church at 465 Beachway Drive. So that's where that was the first building project that my dad got to be a part of, was the large church there. So any others before we start out and we get to continue? Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. You've got our information. Reach out and look forward to seeing you around. Kristen, yeah?
I actually work with them probably every other inspection, and I'll give them a little pat on the back. I think the best thing that they have, and he did not pay me to say this, but he always forgets I work with him, is that they have like a generate repair list, so it's really easy to anything that's poor and fair, you just go generate repair, and then you put keep it, repair it, or replace it, and so then it's really easy for me to send to a seller and say this is exactly what I want repaired, and you can make notes on that. And I've always gotten feedback from the seller's agent to say, or the listing agent, for them to be this is clean cut and it doesn't make me question what you want done to the property. It's just here's the pictures, this is what we want done. So it's super easy and user friendly for agents, and then super easy and user friendly for listeners.
She's on it. She knows it. Yeah, so that is it's a tool within our reporting dashboard, and so we know that the report review and preparing inspection response documents is probably one of your least favorite tasks. So Housemaster created that tool in our report review where you can, it's an actionable item, and like she mentioned, you're clicking on what you're requesting or not requesting. You can type in your specific statement in the box, and it kind of wraps up in a nice, short, abbreviated repair list that you can simply attach to that state inspection response document and say, see request repair list. So she's spot on with that. Thank you. All right, plenty of food, enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me be part of it.
We will be bringing back more lemonade, tea, and sweet tea at some point. You went to go get it, so I don't know how far away it is, but there will be more drinks coming, and I think I forgot my sauces too for grilled steaks. So you guys will have Alfredo here.
Alfredo for days.
In the hot seat. I'm gonna sit in the dark, but you sit in the light.
Good. It's been a while. Run all circles around the city. We'll reach out if you have more questions.
Okay, everyone, just one quick reminder, if you can hang out until the end, we would really appreciate that. We've got someone from Dayspring coming to speak. She's just running a little late, so she'll be the end of this meeting. So if you are able and can hang out, we would appreciate it. We've asked this lovely panel of agents to share with you a little bit about inspections, how they work through it, the process, their best tips for you. And I've got some questions. I'm going to kind of lead it off, and then if you guys have burning questions, there is a spotlight, you can ask them. So, if you guys, I guess maybe you should introduce yourselves first. Just say a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in real estate. Something interesting about yourself.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. Josh Newman. I've been in the industry I'm in my 5th year with the Eveready team right here. Interesting thing about me, it's actually really appropriate that I'm talking on an inspection panel because I've had some really weird stuff happen. So we'll dive into that.
Jenny Bliss McMillian, 8 years. Louder. Okay, all of you. I can be louder. Jenny Bliss McMillian, 8 years.
How do you feel about rain barrels?
I just took mine off my house because it made my backyard sink and crush my sewer. I don't feel great about them right now.
Dan's
Good advice.
Dan McNeil, in the Urban Advisors team. I've only met one basement that I wouldn't go in. It turned out that there was a dead cat in there, so it was
I've seen a cat corpse in a basement. Yeah. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. Before you're even either under contract or an inspection has happened, can you talk a little bit about what your conversations with buyers look like before you're even to the inspection point about inspection? And you guys popcorn it, whoever wants to go.
First thing I tell people is that it's just going to inform you what they see. It is not going to put together for you a repair list. Everything they see on that inspection does not automatically mean that they have to start calling and get estimates and repair if there's an outlet switch that might have a crack in it. That's just, that's not worth fighting for on an inspection. So it's kind of telling you how to live in a house and what to expect in the first couple of years.
I set expectation for amiability. I tell my clients that I never want to use an inspection just to get at the seller, to seek revenge, to nickel and dime them. I mean, people try, but I always try to set my buyer's expectations that if you get this inspection and you want this house, our goal is to get the house. So I never send a full report and just say, fix it. I try to, I've had somebody do that once, I was like, it's laughable. I also tell people, like, let's focus on the things that are super important to you. I draw the line with things like painting, caulking, light bulbs, like that's really digging unless it's new. But I try to keep it to safety and hazards and things like that, and shoot for that middle ground.
Yeah, I'll echo what Jenny and Dan just said. When we have a buyer consultation and we get to the home inspection portion, we talk about, we read together what is a defect, just so they understand that when we go into the inspection process, what a defect is and what a defect is not. And then it's really important whether they come in person or we FaceTime if they cannot make it, that they're there for kind of a debrief with whatever home inspector we're working with. And I tell the home inspector, let's just talk about the big eggs. We'll go through the whole list together, me and client, but let's talk about the big eggs so they can ask the questions while you're here and be a professional. So that's kind of my approach.
And also, old is not defective. I just had to have that conversation. Old is not defective. By default.
Everybody hear that? Okay. Okay, so this one is coming purely from, I helped in New England this week, that you've just gotten this like doozy, like 70-page inspection report, 3 pages of majors and the summary, like, can you just talk about, because I think when agents are newer at doing this, it's like, oh, where do I even like start? How do I break this down? How do I keep my buyer from jumping ship? Can you just talk about what that process looks as far as what you're doing, how your conversations with the buyer are going, like what that looks like?
If I've done my job ahead of time, they're not freaking out when they see it. If I've set their expectations that you're going to see many, many pages of things that might scare you, but let's talk about it first. Don't draw any conclusions, and a lot of times photos may make something look a lot worse than it actually is.
And I think with that, like, most of the red flags we can see when you walk through. You should be able to identify an older roof. You should be able to identify knob and tube. You can tell them if there's a sump pump or not. You can smell dampness in a basement sometimes. So you're using all of your senses to set expectations. But then I was like, obviously if I'm not crawling in your crawl space, so there's always discovered things that's the point of the inspection. So I think the expectation is important.
Yeah, I would definitely say that a big part of our job is when we're on a showing, you're quasi-inspector minded during that period of time. You're walking through, you're looking at all the floor joists, like what's sagging, why is it sagging? You go down to the basement, how's it supported? Is it supported properly? Do we have knob and tube? Do we have, do these walls need straps? There's all these things that go through the mind. So you can prepare your client for the list when it comes and they're not caught off guard. It's not the first time that, they've heard you talk about it. So I think again, just echoing, it's all about setting expectations.
I'm going the road off the list already of questions I sent you, but I think like what Chris said, this made me think of this. I know I have a reputation for being very OCD about how I try to encourage agents to actually write responses, but can you talk about like how you write that up, what's important, even as a list agent, like what you want to see, like those kinds of things as far as on the actual document?
I can tell you what I don't want to see is
Go for it.
copy and paste of everything on that report. And I've received one within the past 2 months that included just a bunch of comments. There was no actual item in there. It just was talking about things that they saw. Don't copy and paste entire sections of a report and send it to a list agent. They're going to lose respect for you, first and foremost. And they're going to know that you have not done your work with your client. And they're counting on you to wade through and do their job for them. So the copy and paste stuff, it gets on my nerves really quickly.
I have a Spartan approach. I use as few words as possible. And I let the report do the talking. So I will thing about nice about like House Masters and others, they have very clear numbers on their things. So also big on credits. So I've been using Crew quite a bit. Some people don't like them, some people like Indiana Residential, but for all the nitpicky stuff that is like, this GFI outlet, this, you're not gonna call an electrician to get an estimate for 3 GFI, these small things. I have Crew do, and they are fast. They will have an email.
Who is that?
Crew, what's
Crew Residential Services, I think.
something like that?
It's a contractor.
I use
and
Eric
Schneller.
What is it?
Eric Schneller.
Schneller. So I sent it to him. I don't think I've ever had a more than 24-hour response from them. They do an email with prices, and then if they have to specialize, we'll have to call our window company, we'll have to call our HVAC company, and then you get the little things all ironed out so that you can get one number. And then if you need to call a special, if you need to call an HVAC company, then you can.
They're estimating off the inspection report.
That's right. They're just giving you, and they stick with it. Like, I just got, who's gonna, I had vinyl siding with holes, random holes. I'm like, who am I gonna get to do random, and Crew said $1,000. I'm like, good luck. And like they say they're gonna do it, so we'll see.
So that's really good. A lot of people, I know a lot of you are really experienced, but for those of you who aren't, like, dealing with this small stuff can be really hard to find a contractor to tackle. So that's what she's saying. Crew is a company that will deal with that. Josh, the report, how do you write it, or what do you want to see when you're listening?
I love the approach of Spartan Mike in as few words as possible, but if y'all know me, I'm not capable of that. So I respond with I respond with this in mind. There can be no subjectivity as to what I'm asking for on behalf of my clients, and then I start to deconstruct it to make it more condensed. Or this is, I would send it to Dan and be like, what's this shit like? This is ridiculous. So I try to deconstruct it. Sometimes I'll send it to one of the teammates and be like, do you have any question what I'm asking for here? Just as kind of like a double checking sort of thing. So I think just making sure without the shadow of a doubt, you know exactly what you're trying to convey, and that list agent's going to know exactly what you're trying to convey. Because sometimes you end up buying appliances you didn't mean to buy, or I think we've probably all been there where you didn't quite say what you intended to say, and it hurts you or your client.
I think especially with older houses, using terms like bring it up to code, and there's some ways you can really get yourself in trouble and confuse people if you're not.
I'm with Jenny. Ask for exactly what you want. And there's no room for interpretation. Cite it on the report. Say, we would like to have this either replaced or repaired or whatever. Be very concise.
I think one thing, kind of trailing off of that a little bit, but I think a lot of realtors don't understand how important your vendors are, your service vendors. My service vendors will bend, they really will bend over backwards for me because I am very faithful. I call my I find somebody that responds to me and does a good job, I am very faithful. I have one electrician that I call every time. I have one landscaper that I call every time. Until they burn me, I'm sticking with them. And that loyalty, I had this weird thing happen recently with an electrician, and he had it fixed and cheap for me because he knows I'm sending him constant work. And I think a lot of agents, they just burn through the numbers, and I'm like, when you find somebody, I think it's really important because it's affecting my job. If I can't get an electrician out, if I can't solve this problem, then I have an issue on both sides. So I think vendors, I treat them very, very carefully.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit, we're in this climate now I feel like we're definitely getting back to won't ask for a single item less than blah, blah, blah. That was fairly new concept last year. I feel like the dollar amount has creeped and creeped and creeped and is getting higher and higher. Can you guys talk about, are you suggesting that to your buyers? And maybe it's only in certain situations, but pros and cons of that, any just general thoughts about what you're seeing now in this super competitive market? How you can maybe part of that is how you handle inspection to win.
I'd say people be a little bit more liberal writing offers and including repairs on their initial offer, which I think is I'm not used to that, and maybe you guys have some thoughts about it, but they're being a lot more liberal and asking for things that they perceive could be wrong. That we haven't had an inspection yet, you have no idea. But for the agent, he'll go in, well, it kind of looks like this might be a problem, so we're gonna ask you to do that. Well, do you know it's a problem, or, is it that 30 years experience telling you that, or, what are you, relying on for that? So people some agents are really kind of overstepping a little bit with that kind of stuff.
I'm not running into a whole lot of the capped, you're talking about how we saw it a lot last year. Just once this year have I run into a competitive offer situation where it felt like putting in a cap would be advantageous. And then the conversation I would have is just, you need to understand if we say a cap of $2,000, nothing less, this is what we could be messing with. HVAC, sewer line, et cetera, we're going to, I don't care what the inspection report says, we're gonna have an HVAC tech come out and take a look at it, because that's the one thing that we can, still mitigate, right? We're gonna scope the sewer line. I think it's just having conversations and making sure they know what we're conveying for them on paper, so there's no, questions after the inspection.
I would use them with caution on a buyer and a house specific basis, because they can be really problematic. I have one where I was the buyer's agent, and there was a leak in the crawl space, and I knew it was way over my cap, but I was like, hey guys, you have an active leak in the crawl space, and it was an agent actually that told me, go down. So I was like, and I will, so. And I'm like, and I had to explain to my buyer. My buyer was like, really? And I'm like, we wrote a minimum, and yes, it seems logical, but they have every right to tell us no. And so you have like this active leak that you're like, your buyer is moving into a house, and so it really stinks. And so I use them really cautiously, only when needed, only when the buyer really gets it, and only when I think the house is gonna inspect well. But, which the house should have inspected well. Had a leak.
Okay, so Dan already shared one thing, but I know there are plenty more. So you guys have all been around long enough. You've seen all these different things. Like, what are things agents do on inspection that just make you crazy that we can maybe educate some people to not do? He just went.
Send the full report. I mean, surely no one's doing that anymore. That you just send the full report and say, make all repairs in a summary.
Right. That's
Surely no one does that anymore. Don't ever do that.
They are doing it, and it's horrible to be on the receiving end of that, because you feel like you're trying to navigate with your client, and now you've got to teach that agent how to do their job too. And that's, it's not a good feeling, and you know that their client is not being served well by them, because they clearly have no clue what that report says. They just, fix everything, and some of that stuff isn't even a call to action.
And I think too, when somebody sends a really long report and doesn't send any estimates, like it's one thing to not be able to get every estimate, right? I just sent one, and we found out there was mold in the crawl space because we had to do a camera inspection on day 6 of, so I didn't have an estimate for that, but I had other estimates for almost everything else. And like when you just say fix it, and you send no estimates, you are putting so much more work on the other agent, and it really looks pretty lazy on your part. So I would say spend some time, if you aren't even willing to try, it's one thing to be like not be able to, but at least spend some effort trying to put some, because they can't make a decision without data, and you put it all on them. So, and then I think even when you say fix it, you've completely put the ball out of your court. So if I have an HVAC and I say fix it, they get to fix it however they want, and all they gotta do is find Joe HVAC, who will say it's done, and all you've gotta do is be like, okay.
Their fix might be put a couple of window
That's great.
units in.
And so you are losing leverage when you just put it in their court because you are being lazy.
Not do anything else.
a buyer's agent takes the full 14 days or whatever the allotted time is, and they send me over, the first page plus 2 addendums, and like you said, there's no quotes. It's like, what the hell have you been doing? Like, without, yeah, so again, so this is now all on me. So if you're not going to go and do your own due diligence, get it back to the list side as soon as possible. Have the inspection as soon as possible. So at least you have that time, and then maybe at least you're making the other side aware, like, hey, this is what we found. Go ahead and get your quotes, we'll get our quotes, because I assume that the list side's gonna do that as well. Let's work together, but let's get the information, like, that's the one, elephant in the room. Let's make it all public knowledge. I hate it when it's held on to the last second. They're like, here you go, have fun with that.
So I kept it.
Oh, man, that irritates me.
And
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and give sellers some time to respond.
Absolutely.
I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I had an agent for a buyer slide an inspection response across the table at closing to the seller and ask, we don't need you to sign this. We were 3 signatures in on this closing when she pulled it. And talk about something coming to a screaming halt. It was
I would
unbelievable.
have liked to have
And-
seen your face at that.
Oh my
closing.
God, yeah. I told her that I might look like I've been around forever. But in the years that I have been around, and anybody that I know has never experienced what you just did.
I would add to, one of my pet peeves is, here's the inspection response, and it's attached, and that's it. And you open it up, and it's a 5-page addendum to inspection, and I'm like, what are you, you're clearly trying to get out, right? Like, call the list agent and have a conversation and set that tone for hey, we really know this is a lot, we're trying to work through it, we're not just trying to torpedo the deal. It goes a long way, I think, so. Okay, so, yes, ma'am.
I guess I wanted to ask, I'm not exactly sure how to phrase this question, but should we try to torpedo the deal via the inspection? I know that's a practice,
It's being recorded, Rosie, I'll talk to you later.
I'm not asking for me personally, but I'm just is everyone, when someone tries to torpedo a deal through inspection, is everyone else
Are you
You
saying
know,
you're trying to kill it?
Like, you want the buyer
You
wants
want
out?
to release?
yeah, if the buyer's trying to kill it, is the seller's agent, would they rather just have an honest conversation about that? Or how does that all work?
Is Mark still there?
He's gone, but.
If you want out, so if you are the buyer's agent and you want out, don't ever tell the other side that you want out.
Got it.
If they ask you straight up, still don't do it.
That's not.
Because what they can do is say, and I have, yeah, is it hot here?
Sorry, am I making everyone sweat? That was so unintentional.
No, so there's a couple things that can happen. So your buyer wants out, so you're like, hey, let's just save time. That's the thing. They're not going to buy this house. So the list side, if they know what they're doing, will say you owe me a response. So if they send one, what are they going to do? If they accept it, you've just lost your client's earnest money. So I've had that happen twice. I have done it to someone, and they wrote that they wanted the house to be dropped $100,000 in price, and my sellers were like, okay. And I was like, because I told him, he told me they wanted out, and I told him you owe me a response, and he sent it over, and my sellers were still buyer two, what do you think? Here's the report. They went through it that night and verbaled an offer to me. And then I was like, cool, when I got on the table is better than that one, so nope, and I went back to buyer one with it. So you can use it as leverage, or if buyer two is like, I'll beat that, I'll take that, then you can release buyer one. So it'll get used against you.
Are you allowed to share that report?
If it's shared with you as a listing agent, it's now your property.
Anything else?
Spicy, I love it.
Wheels are turning. I just want to reiterate too, just the contract thing, wah wah. But like Jenny said, you have to send an inspection response. You can't just send a mutual release, but you are definitely risking earnest money at that point. Same thing when the seller responds. The seller has to respond once and say, yes, we'll do it, we'll do part of it, or nope, we won't do any of it. They cannot just send a mutual release. And the reason for that is the buyer always has the option to go forward even if the seller won't make repairs. Once the seller sends one inspection response, then anybody can start mutual releasing. Does that make sense? I feel like that's, okay. It got weird when they changed the response forms, and I just make sure I noticed that. Okay. So, new agents, you're your first year, you're either in your first inspection or maybe you're in less than 10 inspections. What would be your best advice for people that are just figuring out how to do this?
Follow the inspector around the house.
Show up at those inspections. I see guys regular basis do not go to the inspections. Go there and ask questions and have them show up for at least the last hour, and they will walk you through and show you everything that they saw. All you have to do is ask.
When I was new, I was there all 4 hours.
Been through a lot of it myself. Also, use your leadership or the senior agents that are around, whether it's a team lead or Mark Rex. I think really any of us in this room would be willing to help anybody else that had a question. So just reach out like, hey, does this look right? Did I format this right? Like, is it reading right? I would do that with probably your first handful, just to make sure you don't end up in a bad situation.
Scope your sewers.
Oh, let's talk about sewer scopes for a minute. You all three agree with scope your sewers?
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
That's it, that's all you got, just scope them?
It can turn into a 12 to 20,000. Yeah, it can turn into many, many thousands of dollars. Always have it done.
Do you have an age of house that's new enough that you don't have it done? Like, is it everything built before, whatever in your head, or is it just everybody?
It's hell no. It's-
Yeah, there are plenty of stories.
I just had a 4-year-old house.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would.
But I am guilty of not scoping new sewers, so it's easier.
Just a note on that, my house that was built in 2020 was not connected to the main. The sewer was actually not going nowhere, and after a few months,
How was that?
it was right up in my house. So that is a lesson to everyone, you should definitely scope your sewer.
Yeah.
Learn it on the
My
inside.
son-
I had the same thing happen on it in my house.
Onyx Denise.
Into the wall.
A lot of times on new construction, there are heavy vehicles all over that property, and the lateral's already in place, and the dirt is not settled yet. They could collapse it during construction with a heavy truck.
I told my son, we're fine, we don't need to scope the sewer on your brand new home. And it had been crushed in construction 6 days. He has gray water on 2 floors of his 6-day-old home.
Okay, one more question, then we'll let these guys ask questions. What's the craziest, funniest, weirdest thing that you've ever seen or might come back out of inspection?
I had an inspector tell, so everybody knows what a scuttle is. It's just the access to the attic, right? This one was in a bathroom on a new construction. The inspector told the buyer that they were gonna start growing mold in the attic because the blown-in insulation wasn't over the scuttle.
This is just
But
recently.
this was very recently, and you can't blow insulation on top of the door that you are using to get out of the attic. I couldn't believe
Not
what it
because
was.
a dryer vent was going there.
No, it's just that the moisture from the bathroom was gonna creep in there and cause mold because there was no insulation on the door that you had to use to get in and out on a brand new house that had a really good fan. I couldn't believe that I was hearing those words out of somebody's mouth, that they didn't rationally think about what they were saying.
Anybody else have something funny?
Not super funny, but not super funny, but it was just kind of awkward. So one of my first listings, the owner had passed, and you know, you don't disclose really anything unless you're asked, and it was asked, like, has anybody died in this house? And I said, yeah. And then the tone changed on the buyer side. They said, well, this house, we have to bless this house. I'm like, bless on, do your thing. They actually put it in the inspection response that the house had to be blessed, and I was like, isn't that? I countered. And I said, the buyer shall be responsible for all blessings. So we're not going to do this. They were exactly what you would have thought they were. They would have looked like somebody who was consistent. This house must be blessed. Just sweet little older people, and I was like, good luck, you know.
I'm not qualified.
But I was like, what do you guys want to do with this? And they're like, no, we're not. No. You know, it was the children, you know. They're like, no. It was just awkward.
Wait, John, did you ever find out, like, what did they mean by blessing it? Like, prayers or sage or like?
Blood over the doorpost?
I think it was like a Catholic priest would come in and sage holy water,
Yeah,
do
holy
that
water.
thing.
Do that thing.
Yeah, do that. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that's just, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't even know where to start. I'm not saying no, but I'll put that back on your agent.
Let that go sit.
Make sure it sounds good.
Jenny, you must have a story.
I've had, raccoon, like, whole attic, whole raccoon family, whole attic, all of the insulation had to be removed, you know, all that. So I don't know how funny that is, but probably my most wild one happened just a month ago. Sewer had been repaired, sewer scope's not good. The sewer was exiting the basement foundation, basement floor level. Typically, sewers exit halfway out of the basement with an injector. So this was a ground floor, so it was full, like at the whole driveway and everything. So they basically had to excavate the entire yard. The whole driveway had to go, a tree had to go, the city sidewalk had to go, and my seller was a contractor. So he and what was the guy's name? Probably better than I don't say it. Did this themselves, and so he kept calling me, it's not good, you know, it's getting deep, I'm like, so I had my own sewer issue at my own house, and so my guy, who I have on speed dial, who I'm incredibly loyal to, I said, hey, can you just go drive by this? I said, I don't have the heart to drive by it, it's not my thing, so they're doing it. He calls me seconds later, he's like, that's the most unsafe thing I've ever seen. Oh my gosh, I love that. He's like, and then 5 seconds later he calls me again. He goes, I had to spin back around to see it twice, and now the city's there. And so Ronnie Sanders, if any of you have ever dealt with anything, he is the top guy at Citizens. And Right of Way, we're both there shutting them down. And so I had to get on Ronnie's good side. I'm like, hey Ronnie, what can we do? So then we had to fire the first contractor, bring in my guy. My guy saved the day, and we still don't have a driveway because we're waiting for everything to settle. But it's still going on, actually.
And when did it start? When was it?
I'd say it's been a month. Yeah.
All right, we've got about a handful of minutes. Does anybody have questions for these guys? Drew?
With the new verbiage in the inspection response, that basically the buyer sends a second response, the seller can issue a release. How has that impacted
his house and the sell, if motivation remains the same on both sides, we can figure it out. But some people are like, this isn't working, we release, like if you work with a lot of investors, there are a lot of people that release a lot easier than mine. But I almost never release.
And just to clarify, that's always been the way it worked. They just added that language in the document.
They made it
So the
clearer.
process hasn't necessarily changed, but go ahead, sorry.
No.
Answer. Does that change
Do
anything?
you
about how
release
guys
more
do
with
it?
investors?
Yes, yeah, it's not an emotional, transaction for them, it's all about dollars and cents. And sometimes it just does not make sense for them, the math just ceases to exist for that property, and, so yeah, with investors, we tend to release more.
Anybody else? Questions? Does anybody else
Does that
have
answer your question, Drew? Like, what are you?
That's great.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have a good bound on inspection story? No? Critters? Critters, go ahead. Spencer?
More of a comment, if anybody does need a house blessing,
Next time Josh will be like, yeah.
That.
yeah, 125 per blessing, so it's a per room situation.
Rex?
So let's
Yeah.
figure it.
So in this housing market, especially for first-time home buyers, they're looking to get into a home they can afford, they get through an inspection response often, their first home might be a 2-bed, 1-bath, might be, 1,100 square feet. Roof's older, and imperfect, but watertight. HVAC might be a little older, have never been cleaned, but functional. A lot of first-time home buyers, they see that inspection report, it's terrifying, and the reality is there's a lot of imperfect, right? How do you help in this market with first-time home buyers having to reorient around affordability and how purchasing an older home that's gonna maybe meet their needs but come with some functional obsolescence? How do you help them navigate that without unduly influencing them?
So Jenny mentioned it earlier, and I've thrown this out jokingly when I'm consulting buyers, just because Granny's 80 and she's a little loose of the tongue, how older folks get, they say some really silly stuff. Doesn't mean you're gonna check her into a nursing home, right? Doesn't mean you're gonna throw her out, right? She's still Granny, she's still good. So when it comes to your roof, your mechanicals, these things, at the end of their lifespan, as long as they're still doing functioning, as intended, you just have to be prepared for that as a first-time home buyer. And I think really emphasizing the home warranty and the home warranty that you guide them to, I think is really important. Like what's going to cover them the best. So just making sure that they understand, just because it's at the end of its lifespan, they use that term a lot, doesn't mean that it is defective or. And then end of lifespan is very subjective too. I've seen things last way longer than you ever would have thought. So I think you just have to be prepared and prepare your buyers.
Yeah, I agree with the home warranty, but I have a pretty lengthy home warranty conversation. I call it insurance for the inside of your house. And then I tell my buyers, I say it that way on purpose, because it has a deductible, you're fighting an insurance company, you have to prove it, if they're a pain in the ass, but it can save you. The other thing I say is if you have an old roof, pray for hail, it's Indiana, and I'm not kidding. Like,
Spencer, pray for hail.
pray for hail. I also do, like with old sewer, I was gonna say this before with sewers, any old sewer lateral, I think needs sewer, it's service line coverage, it's a separate rider for your homeowner's insurance. And I tell all of my clients, it's pretty new. Like I don't think maybe even 3 years ago we knew about service line coverage. So we definitely do that as well, trying to, but same thing. And then I also talk about like if you have an old furnace, maintain it. Get somebody out, get on a maintenance program, get them out twice a year, and then you're gonna know. You might be able to, fix parts for a really long time
to Utility Shield through Citizens is another option for sewer laterals, and actually they have policies that go into the house and cover some of the mechanical systems. But there's a reason that those things have lasted this long already on the house that Rex described, is because they were taken care of. So if you continue to take care of them, they're going to keep serving you well. So if you go into that house that might have an older roof or an older HVAC system, if you just ignore those things, it's going to go bad on you. But that's with anything. So you have to go in with your eyes wide open, knowing that you're going to have to. This isn't an apartment; it's a house. So you're going to have to take care of it, and it'll take care of you.
Anybody else? Don't throw Granny away.
Less Granny.
All right, can we thank these guys for being here? One more thing from Haley.
Yep. Okay. If you're looking for ways to love on the community, we have Janice here, and she's going to talk about Dayspring, a place where she is near and dear to. Please give us your time.
And I'm a grandmother, don't throw me away. I love my life. You know what? Thank you so very much. And I know you guys have a lot to do, and I'm not going to stay with you very long. But I love your panel discussion. I came in on your other presenter, but I love this panel discussion because I'm a homeowner. So you know what? I love hearing about all these things. I don't plan to buy anymore, but you never know how it's going to work. And back to your blessing on the house. Let me go back to that. Go back to that on that. There are many ways that people do that in their lives, in their homes. They do it privately. You said the Catholic, but you know, just anybody that's moving into somewhere, they don't want all that stuff to break down on you. They go in person, hit every door, every post, or whatever they do, and that's blessing your home. And so I just want you to know I'm a minister on the other side of what I do as well. So thank you so very much for that. The Dayspring Center. How many of you know anything about the Dayspring Center? The ones that didn't pay, don't you put your hands up. Okay, let's do this. Who all came to Daysprings? Who all came to Daysprings?
Like if we've ever been there before.
No, who all came when they visited last night?
This too.
Okay, come on up here. Come up here. Oh yeah, I love this. I love this. I love this. These young people, and I say young people, these young people came down to the Dayspring Center. The Dayspring Center is a homeless shelter. And the only way you can get into Dayspring, there has to be children involved. That's the only way to get there. No men, no women. It's children with their parents or with the person who is responsible for their care. The Dayspring Center is about 2 blocks down the road. 2 blocks down the road, not far at all. And there were some other persons that came with these young people as well. This young lady gave me a call. Her and her husband came down and sit at the table with me. We sit down and talked about, would there be a possibility that your organization could come down and provide some type of assistance for the Dayspring Center? Well, one Saturday for lunch, I was like I am now. I had another meeting to attend. These young people came in, and I was so fascinated by how they came into the building, turned around, made their spaghetti, their garlic bread, their salads, and all the different things, and they came in with a sense of joy. I say that to say, I had to go to another meeting. I cried because I had to go because I wanted to stay with them and I wanted to be in the kitchen and watch them do what they were doing. The Dayspring Center is a center that's been around probably about 35 years. Started down the street, not too far from where you are now. A gentleman froze to death in his car. And the Dayspring Center is connected to All Saints Church, right on the corner. All Saints Church brought those men in to help them so they wouldn't be homeless and let them sleep on their pews. Found out these people had families that came with children. So they decided to shut down part of their building, and they made a shelter, 14 rooms. I tell people when I go to schools and I present them, I ask the kids, how many of you have your own rooms at home? They all raise their hands. How many of you have your own cell phones? They all raise their hands. How many of you can go in the refrigerator and get whatever you want to get out of your refrigerator when you want to do? They raise their hands. I tell them, you know what? You need to go back home and tell your parents thank you. Because here at the shelter, 14 rooms, they sleep on bunk beds. The smallest room has 2
2 bunk beds, and the largest room has 6 bunk beds. And at the shelter, the families come in, like some of us, some of them have been to school, got an education, and somewhere down the line, something happened. They couldn't provide for themselves, couldn't pay a rent, or couldn't pay their insurance, or couldn't pay for their children, whatever the reason is, they fell on hard times. So down the street, we are there, I'm the volunteer coordinator. I bring persons in to come in just to volunteer to do whatever it is that in your heart you feel that you know you want to do. I tell people all the time, I don't micromanage. If you want to be there for an hour, you want to be there for 2 hours, you want to be there for once a month, or whenever you want to come, I will accept you in and we'll find a place for you to do whatever it is your heart tells you going to do. Dayspring is a very small staff, but everything else is volunteer oriented. People come in from companies, individuals, families, once a month. Some people come in every week. I have a group that comes in every Saturday morning, same group, with just different teams. Come in and cook home-cooked meals for the families. Do you know what a home-cooked meal feels like for a family that has not eaten for days? They do that every Saturday morning. That's their commitment. Then I have somebody come in once a month. Whatever it is, it's on your heart to do. Our donations, we have a donation process. Everything in that building has been donated, from beds, from sheets, from everything. If you name it, it's been donated. We have 14 rooms. When that room turns over, the families can stay there 45 to 60 days, only if they're obedient and only if they have zero tolerance for what they cannot do. They can't bring drugs in, they can't bring weapons in. They have to come in only with their family members, no visitors, none of that. What else? Talk to me.
Ms. Janice, case
Talk.
management.
I'm sorry.
As soon as they enter, they get a case manager that follows them and the entire
She
process
listened to
through
me.
until the entire 45 to 60 days. And then afterwards, that case manager follows up with them for the entire year so that they don't have to be a repeat customer, essentially. So it definitely is a shelter that doesn't just feed and leave. It's a shelter that makes them thrive and successful and teaches them to be good parents and not be in the same situation that they're in.
Those children and those families don't just come from this district here. This is the IPS system. These children come from different schools across our community. Whatever school those children came from, those school children will return back to that school in which they came from. It is a responsibility. After they're there for 3 days, they have to return back to that school, and the case manager will sit down and write a plan, and that school is responsible for picking those children up from where they are. Our shelter offers a 6-week camp when school is out. The campers will be from the children who are at Dayspring, but also any child that's been in that center for the last year. We will bring those children back, and they will also be able to attend that camp free of charge. These children don't just come and sit and look at videos and do all this. These children have field trips. They go to Top Golf, they go to pony rides, they go to swimming, you name it. We have a person who put a plan in place for these children to do things that they've never done before, and they can do with their families or without their families. Any questions? They have 3 meals. They eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We provide all those meals for them. Some organizations like this wonderful group came in and cooked the meals for the family. Then we have a company called Second Helpings. They bring food in as well, and we actually serve food. They don't too much like Second Helpings, but they do love food. They do love food that's cooked, just like all the rest of us. We like food, homemade food. They're doing the same thing. And we are not a traditional shelter in the sense that this is a husband and a wife. It is whoever is the guardian of those children. And however that family is made up, that's how we receive them into the shelter. They must have their Social Security card. They must have their all of their birth certificate to make sure that those children are matched up to the right people in that shelter. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? I am a product of 10 children. My parents had 10 children. We lived in the state of Tennessee on a farm, and when my parents had us, I never forget, my parents had a 2-bedroom home, a tin roof, did the rain falling, and I had this 6 girls and 4 boys. Mother and Daddy had their bedroom, the girls had their bedroom with 2 large beds, and 3 of us slept in one bed, and 3 of us slept in the other, and my brother slept in the living room, on the rollaway bed, or on the floor. My parents weren't rich, but the one thing I knew my parents did, my parents loved all 10 of us. And I would never say I was homeless because I wasn't. But we're living in a day where things change. We have a mother that has 3 degrees, had 3 degrees. You would say, you know what, why is she in the shelter? She was in the shelter because she fell on bad times, she got ill, and her hospital bill started coming in and she couldn't afford to pay a hospital bill and take care of a home and her children. This thing out here is real. Children, one thing to be an adult and homeless, but to be a child. Holidays, we do not allow our children to miss holidays. Every holiday that comes up, we participate and we make sure our children feel the effects of it. Thanksgiving, the families that are away from that we take care of a year after they leave us, we make sure they have the same benefits as the persons who are living in the shelter. For Thanksgiving, we make sure they have their Thanksgiving meal, the dinners prepared for them. For Christmas, we make sure all of those are done. And all the extra little fun holidays that children love to celebrate. We have people coming in to decorate the rooms and the areas for them. We have people coming in to paint. I just met with a group just a few minutes ago that's coming to change a floor in the children's room. I tell people, I don't micromanage, but I tell people this. Whatever it is you can do, think outside the box. Whatever it is that moves your heart to shift, that makes a difference for somebody else. And so, I just love it. I just love the fact that as you were talking and you were sharing in this presentation earlier, I see how you love what you do. I mean, it's in your heart, and in your heart, in your spirit. Well, this is in my heart and spirit. I'm so grateful. I have 3 sons, 45, 42, and would have been 39. He passed away in a car accident. And I raised my sons to give and to serve. And today, my two older sons are doing that. And I gave them as much of what I could give to them. But my oldest son told me one day, he wrote me this, I said, Mom, you gave me love. And that's made all the difference in the world in my life and what he's doing now. And at the end of the day, how many of you have children? Grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and whatever. You can give them all the money in the world. I don't care. You can give them all the money in the world. But when they know that you love them, that will carry them further than any dollar will in their lifetime. And so we're just stretching out. And speaking of children and love, oh my God, 3 weeks and it's over. 3 weeks is over. And I tell you, this young lady and her husband, they represented you very well when they came to talk to me that evening because they brought their love in their heart with them. And they talked about you so wonderfully that there was a group that they worked with that they wanted to share this experience with. And so when this group came to share with us, Muscle Man, here when he came up. He did that. And he asked.
They were extra clean, right? They were extra.
And he came up and he, I'm looking just like my children. You guys probably my children ladies, but when he came and he asked me about Day Springs, I will never forget when we stood in that kitchen. And you were sitting there when I was talking to him. I was telling him about Day Springs, and I saw how his heart was so touched by it. And that's the way, life is. When you're talking to these persons who are homeowners, well, you don't want to be homeowners, you got to get to their heart. They got the money, but you got to get to their heart. That 80-year-old woman, you better pay attention. You better pay attention to detail, because she knows a lot of stuff you need to know, and she can teach you. You're never too old to learn something. And so this is a wonderful presentation. I guess you're the leader, aren't you?
Yes, of course.
Well, I guess you're the leader. However you want to work that. But this is the concept. I just want to say the concept of what you are teaching them and you're showing the persons who are in the room. It's always wonderful to come together and communicate and how to figure and work out situations. Somebody who's younger who's working in the program, then somebody who's more mature that's been working in the program, like the person who's sitting at the podium today. It's always good to teach somebody and help them to learn. Well, that's what the Day Spring Center is about. It's about teaching these young parents, no matter what nationality they're coming from, no matter what age they are, teaching them how to love their children. and how to take care of themselves. And so that's what it's all about. I'm proud of you guys. I'm proud of you guys. If you have any questions, let me know. I answer whatever I can for you. I'm not shy. That's for sure. Any questions? Yes, 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 yes. Oh, you're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.